Well, good afternoon and welcome. Gosh, we have a great one in store for you today. Let's just share it up on screen here. Hang on one second. There we go. Well, welcome. We're going to learn to take back control in our job search in a very different way today. Today, we're going to look at really how you use social media marketing in your job search. This is Career Evolution, social media marketing in your job search. It's really the part 2 to my LinkedIn lecture. If you haven't seen the LinkedIn lecture, it's right on my homepage, halfway down that page, selfrecruiter.com. Whole thing's free. You can see me, the slides. Really use it as a start and stop tutorial, really to build out the absolute best LinkedIn profile ever, which in my view is a 3-dimensional sales brochure, all about you, naturally driving the reader to that one conclusion. My gosh, if I hire that person, if I work with that person on the project, best business decision I'll make today. Now, once you have the right LinkedIn profile, it's the same thing as a gorgeous brochure sitting in a rack in the corner, potentially getting dusty. How do we make sure it is the marketing tool that it's really meant to be? That is, what do we do now? Now, there's a few alternate titles to this lecture. Now that I have a LinkedIn profile, or a great one, what do I do with it? Everybody told me I had to be here. How do I utilize it? Another way to think of it is, coming right up, how do I take control of my career story beyond just the framework, which may be a very, very nice framework that we put together on LinkedIn? How do we get how other people are thinking about us? Let me get a little drink here, because I'm going a little bit dry. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru. We're going to teach you a lot of interesting things today, but there's other resources available. Over on my LinkedIn, some articles you can get to, how to avoid the biggest mistake in job search, or how to supercharge your job search, how not to let your resume become resume roadkill. And we're going to start off with this short little piece right here. Takes about 2 minutes, and I'm going to jump right back in. I'm going to bring it center screen.
I'm John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about using LinkedIn and getting the best out of social media marketing. Your business is built on perception. Perception of the products or the services or of your reputation. Business today is judged by web presence, not just a business's website. In our traditional work life, we didn't hesitate to network with the right people when an opportunity arose. That chance to meet the right people that could help our career. But as a small business owner, sometimes it's all you. It becomes easy for us to prioritize networking away. Oh, not today. Until it's never on today's list. We have so many other hats to wear if we are to reach our dreams. And those other hats are certainly more important. It's important for every small business person to network, to open doors that you may not have even imagined yet. You need to be reaching and communicating with current and potentially new customers or clients. You need to be out there contributing to the discussion about you. And with focus, it takes much less time than you really think to be effective. But you do have to take control. You have to develop your LinkedIn profile into a 3-dimensional sales brochure, all about you, that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion. If I work with, hire, or buy from this person, it's the best business decision I'll make today. Then make use of social media marketing tools built into LinkedIn to be sowing your value across the network in updates and postings and other shares that influence the perception of you. Well, there's much more to share as we're just getting started. Now imagine that you have this great communication platform. By the way, that's your great LinkedIn profile that positions both you and your business professionally and effectively. And think about the effects of using and implementing a sharing on a schedule or editorial calendar to simplify your messaging. That's a powerful voice to be heard that affects perception. What would you want others to be thinking of when they're thinking of you? That's the important question.
Well, don't be distracted by the word business there. That's a piece I put together for Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program a few years back. But if you replace that word business, your business, with career brand, you have a career brand to manage forevermore. So everything that's in that video applies to you as well. You have to think about how to utilize your profile and utilize the social media marketing components on LinkedIn to push and message about your career brand. That elevates your brand. So today we're talking about becoming a self-recruiter in terms of social media marketing. We're going to turn this lens toward that. But keep in mind, becoming a self-recruiter is about being one great recruiter, which is you, looking after one great candidate, which is also you. And of course, you also have to be the strategist, the cheerleader, picking yourself up at the bootstraps, dusting yourself off, and facing a new day. Also means we're going to network in a very different way. That's really LinkedIn. So be sure to watch the LinkedIn video, and keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. Now, a little bit on the secrets to refreshing your career story. A lot of it is making sure to go back and do the full resume renovation. That video is on my YouTube and my Facebook if you need to see it. Also, make sure you take the expanded telling of your career story over to LinkedIn and develop it into a full three-dimensional sales brochure. This is all part of how you're going to market your brilliance and get them to really see your value. Also, again, part of how you take control of the discussion of you and you create engagement, which is, of course, a lot closer to this type of engagement than the mechanical type of engagement. Now, when we think of social media and job search, maybe some of these come into our minds, but, you know, social media is endless. There's more and more and more every single day. What I'm talking about today is not losing your time. The time you have available is the only resource you have as a job seeker. If you follow my recipe, you can very, very easily do about 2 hours of homework. And from the 2 hours of homework, you can then spend 2 minutes per day, just 2 minutes out of your job search day, running an effective social media marketing campaign for your job search that will bring people to you, have people knocking on your door. And when you do knock on their door, figuratively, obviously, over the phone, boy, the doors will open up for you. They'll perceive your value in a very, very different way. Now, let's not get lost in all these social media options. It is probably about picking 2, 3, maybe even 4 platforms that you can manage very, very efficiently. So the rest of your time, you can actually do job search activities. Check out the Supercharging Your Job Search to understand what actual real job search activities are, which is not sitting on the internet looking at job postings. To me, that is pure tragedy. You're wasting 50% of your time because half those postings are not real in the first place. Check out my other lectures and you'll find out why. Now, social media, what is it? This is not new. I didn't invent it, grabbed it off of Facebook a couple of years ago, and social media evolves so quickly, it's already out of date. Twitter, here I am eating a donut. Facebook, well, I like those donuts. Foursquare, I don't know who uses that any longer, so we're just going to ignore it. Instagram, here's a picture of a vintage donut. Well, not too many people using Instagram for vintage things these days, but still a little bit. YouTube, well, here I am actually eating a donut. Of course, LinkedIn, my skills include donut eating. Pinterest, maybe that's where I collect the recipes for that. And Last.fm, well, no one's listening to that either, so we'll just move right on. Just like these platforms wither and die away because they fail to evolve, that same thing can happen to our career if we fail to evolve. We have to become involved, and we have to understand all of this is an influence platform. Influence platform about how your value can potentially help their companies achieve very new and different things. So why is it that social media is so important? And I'm not talking about the 157 tweets over the weekend type thing. It's where the people are. It's where your connections are. It's where you can leverage all that conversation about you. But really look at the second from the bottom here. Proper use of social media, effective use of social media, 2 minutes per day, the way I prescribe it. That is how you effectively stay on the top of people's minds that you seemingly have no contact with. This is how you get on the short list for an interview up the food chain of your own company that you never applied for. How you get on the short list for an interview at the competitor company for some role you never applied to. They just reached out to you because they were already aware of you through effective social media use. So let's not wait. Let's be careful and cautious and measured in our risk, but let's also hold our nose and jump in the pool. If we don't get wet, we're not going to get anywhere. In terms of social media profiles, now today we're talking primarily about the framework of LinkedIn, and you're going to have to extrapolate this information to the other platforms. Just make sure your profiles on those platforms are going to have to work synergistically together. In my view, they should not just replicate each other. What's the point of looking here or looking there or looking over there if they're all identical? They have to work synergistically together, but they also have to have some little bit of different aspect, a little different angle of you. So in terms of the platforms you may be zeroing in on, certainly LinkedIn, if we'd like to be employed. Let's add to the, if we'd like to be employed, Twitter. Yep. If you'd like to be employed, you need to be on Twitter. That does not mean we need to be on there tweeting, tweet. No, we don't have to do that. But what you do let flow across social media on LinkedIn, you can seamlessly, with no effort, one toggle, let it flow out to Twitter, really double your advertising effect, because everything you share on social media is essentially advertising. If it's advertising, we have to go to some basic questions. Why am I using this platform? What's my purpose? What are my goals for using this platform? And oh my gosh, I hope I really thought about this. Are my target markets using this platform? Because if not, maybe I'm attracted to that platform, but I have to go find the right platform for my target markets, which may not be the platform that you'd like, but you have to go get it if that's where your targets are. Information is the new currency, and I talk a lot about this in the LinkedIn lecture. Be sure to watch that right on my homepage, selfrecruited.com, halfway down the page. But in that lecture, the LinkedIn lecture, I'm usually talking about extracting information out of LinkedIn. Well, today what we're really talking about is seeding information. How do I begin to seed systematically information out there? Almost as this. What if I let people look over my shoulder to see what I'm reading, doing, sharing, attending, interacting with? What draws John's attention? Gosh, they're almost reading my mind. And they are going to read my mind because I'm going to share a few words of opinion every time I share something. This is how you raise your brand value. So you're going to have to become the content guru of you. Maybe you've never done it before and it sounds so scary, but we're going to have to think about what we'd like to accomplish. You could reframe or reclaim certain things. I don't have to read everything that's up on the screen here, but it depends on what your goal is and what you'd like to correct, or which trajectory you might like to open up to yourself, which seems closed at the moment. We may need to chameleon our way into a new you. Well, content is king, and it better be visual. If it's not visual, people tune out really, really quickly. I was just overhearing a conversation about social media use with a company I'm pretty familiar with. And gosh, the person that didn't really get it took all this nice visual social media potential content that was put together and distilled it down to a 10-number text list. Well, that doesn't seem very wise, because the internet doesn't pay attention if it's not also visual. So we have to make sure the content is good, but beyond everything else, it also has to be visual. That is 60 to 90 days to change the entire outlook for you. That's what the branding from social media can do to you. Now you see LinkedIn, you're about to see Twitter. Yep, there it is. You see those two profiles work together visually, but they're not identical. Oh, maybe the profile shot's identical, but the banners are different. Everything else is a little bit different. How I talk about myself maybe a little bit different. But then I allow this content to seamlessly flow across LinkedIn and then seamlessly out to Twitter. All that requires is that you give LinkedIn your Twitter credentials. And then when you go to share something, it's a simple toggle to let it double your advertising essentially. And you have to begin to think about what is the effect as people see this content over and over and over and over. You can imagine what they start thinking about myself, good, bad, and maybe even not so good based on all of that. But, you know, all of that is part of the brand. And you're going to have to think about, I have to get comfortable in that skin. I got to be out there, and I'm going to have to take charge. So this is really showing content on LinkedIn and Twitter, but you're likely going to use a few other platforms. Myself, I also use, well, I use so many platforms, but, you know, one of the ones I use is Instagram. And my Instagram has nothing to do with what I do professionally. If you'd like to see it, by the way, it's over on my website, the selfrecruiter.com website. One of those drop-down menus. Drop-down menu seems to indicate something must be important. There's my Instagram right there. And if you click on it, you see a whole sheet of Instagram pics, and there's nothing professionally here. It's me hiking up the Hudson Valley. It's me doing all sorts of things that are challenging, including emotional challenges. Unfortunately, lost one of my sisters on 9/11. And every time that comes around, the easiest way to share pictures with extended family that aren't in New York is through my Instagram account. So that you'll find some of that stuff on there. But that's about challenge, emotional challenge. Everything really there is about challenge, which subliminally ties back into what I do professionally. But why is that there, and why is that so important to me? Because same reason, if you've seen my other lectures, you know, you probably already know by now, there are only 2 reasons you're ever going to be hired. Just 2 of them, ever. That's it. This is assuming you're capable or qualified. By the way, let me fix my mic here. I realize it's a little bit off here. Hopefully we got some good sound here. But I'm not going to hire you because you're capable or qualified. Don't mishear. I will not hire anybody I don't think is capable or qualified. But that's not the deciding piece. There shouldn't be anybody in the room for the conversation that doesn't meet that criteria. Why I hire you is, why are you interesting? What makes you tick? And when you hire a career coach, or when you hire someone like a resume writer to reinvent your career across the resume or LinkedIn profile, that's also a hiring or buying decision. We want to hire or buy from people that we get. Yes, we'd like them to be qualified and be the right expert, but we'd also like to get who they are. That's why my Instagram is there, to give a little peek behind the curtain. Who is this crazy guy you're seeing on video, or in the non-pandemic world, out in all these wonderful lectures at the New York Public Library's Job Search Central, at New York State Department of Labor, multiple locations, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, Harvard Business School, Club of New York City, CUNY, a bunch of others. So begin to think about how you're going to take some of this content or create new content and put together a campaign. Now, don't be distracted by what I shared. Most of it was what I do as a public speaker. So I'm in a lot of that content. I don't really expect you to be in your content very much for your own job search unless you're a public expert, and then it would be fantastic, of course. But we're going to look at how you'll put together a different set of content that affects how people think of you in your profession, even when they've not met you. Now, we have to start with the idea that we're this product. We can't get away from that. We have to think about it. So why is your product better? What do you do better? Why is it you're a standout in your field? Or why do you think you're going to be a standout in your field? I hate to throw some harshness into this discussion, but I'm sorry, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years in your role does not make you an expert. You know, that expert at one thing, and oh my gosh, you probably didn't really learn the right one thing. So that's not someone that is looked at as a star. It's like, oh gosh, they were 20 years in their last role. 20 years in their last role. What were they hiding from? What were they running from? What were they pretending to be? And how much didn't they learn in their career? To really become an expert, we must make moves. This doesn't mean every year, but if we're not moving every 3, 4, 5 years, you look at your competitor left and right, start keeping track right now, and let's check back in 5 or 10 years. And if you've stayed in the same role and your 2 competitors on either side have changed every 4 or 5 years, not only are they going to be at a different responsibility level above you, they're also going to be at a different earnings level, because you also get hit quite a bit on earnings when you stay in the same role, besides not being a true expert in your area. So we're going to have to go back and really understand ourselves, why we're a standout or will be a standout. But we also have to marry that with what we'd like to do, which may be very similar to what we've done in the past, or could be a new animal, a new challenge. Gosh, I just saw all over the news today, because I guess it's time to push that story that Ellen is only going to do one more year of her show. Gosh, 19 years into the show. Pretty amazing. Okay. Because she needs a new challenge is what she says. You may need a new challenge. So what would you like to do? Now, pandemic world. Oh, yes. They just don't want the same old cookie cutter as before, even if they still act like that because they're stuck in the mindset. Not likely to be what they actually choose, even if they're resistant to changing their own verbiage. Adaptability and new ideas to do things is the new way forward. How many of us really, percentage-wise, worked remotely before? Well, I did a few, video things before, but nothing like I've done in this last year. And it's been wonderful, because forcing yourself into a new arena, just like you're seeing here, produces new outcomes. So you're going to have to think about how this year has really changed everything. And you're going to have to be seen as not disrupted by that, but enlivened, energized, invigorated from that. So these other people that are out in the world, whether those are in our company, outside our company, across the industry, how would we like them to see us? What qualities do you have? What makes you tick? What are your passions? Hopefully we get a little close to what you love to do. By the way, I mean, the love to do thing is quite important. We need to really make sure we understand and get close to that. Sometimes we fall in a trap in our career of chasing the money. And boy, don't I get it. I live in New York City. Can't imagine too many other places that are as expensive to kind of keep things balanced as they are in New York City. And yet you've got to get out there. You've got to make changes. So I want them to see me as a person that's really the future of their company. And I better have most of the qualities that you're going to see here up on screen. Now, it doesn't matter what your own personality is. I mean, I'm in reality, and people always laugh when they hear it. In reality, I'm shy and introverted. And people are like, oh, come on. I've never seen that, John. And that's my friends. Okay, well, just because I'm a master at hiding it or putting it behind the facade does not mean that I'm not shy and introverted. Oh, I've overcome it. I never could have imagined this is what I'm going to do for my living. But you know what? You can use technique and also your own expertise that you build in the area to get by those handcuffs, those cultural handcuffs, emotional handcuffs. Really free yourself to be who you know to be in your heart. Be organic. And you're going to display a lot of those qualities up on screen. Now, another challenge that we have to deal with, and I talk about this a little bit in some of the other lectures, not okay just to be cookie cutter perfect. Oh, I'll be perfect. I'll just be perfect. They're going to pick me. They're going to pick me. They're not going to pick you. If I'm going to pick one of these people in this line, oh my gosh, I'll take number 3. I'm going to pay number 3 less. Number 3 doesn't want less. I'll take number 4 and I'll take number 2. I'll take anybody in this line because you know what? They're all interchangeable and I'm getting it for less because it's a commodity. They're on the market. You're not exclusive. You have to not only be interchangeable, which is the qualified and capable piece, but you have to somehow step out of that line and be exceptional. Small changes in your social media use elevate your brand value and help you step out of line. That's how you get a different responsibility than is just in that job ad and a different compensation offer at the end of the dating process. Interview process. Interviewing is like dating. And you know what? It's your job to teach them how to select you, not walk in the door like a pretty little flower and, oh, they'll just pick me. Not going to pick you. If you'd like a lot more secrets on getting ready for the interview, my interview intervention lecture is my very next lecture on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 5 p.m., plus a lot of video interviewing techniques because that's the world we now live in. We have to be ready for it. Of course, after collecting a little social media content, and we're going to give you some advice as to what your content should be coming up, I then have to do a little bit of hitting the chessboard. How am I going to make wondrous things happen with a little bit of strategic sharing, influencing of other people that are in the industry, getting them to see me as the person that they maybe need to see on our team or their team. Then I have to go back to this if that's my goal. How are people judging me? Which would affect what I might like to share. Well, that's really the other flip side of that question. How are they judging me? Well, what should I share? It's really kind of the same question because they're all connected. They're going to judge you from this information that you're seeding to the system. So This is where you do need to start splitting hairs. Projects that I've worked on or initiated or developed, absolutely. Those are all different angles of contribution I could talk about, or the levels of those projects, or the levels of the accomplishment itself, or maybe my educational development, or books or articles or white papers or events, probably the bulk of what you'll share. So all those things begin to become some of the content that I'm going to let flow across my LinkedIn lecture. Let me be clear. When I share something on LinkedIn, I am certainly not sharing it with my connections. Would you like to lose all of your connections? Would you like to burn them all out until they don't like you and disconnect from you? Well, by all means, post something and share it directly with all your connections. That, in my view, and everything I'm teaching you today is my view, that's a once, maybe twice a year event, maybe once every 2 year event, something earth-shattering happening for you. I might want to tell all of my connections. Short of that, what I mean is we're just sharing it to the feed, and you're letting the AI, the artificial intelligence behind the scenes, really that AI that sits over top of LinkedIn and determines your destiny. Let the AI take your content and put it in front of people that it thinks will love your content. Oh, I think people will love this content over here. And then they give your content to the right audience that will love your content and probably like your content and maybe interact with your content, which is really what we're after. Of course, as we begin to imagine these things flowing across the LinkedIn network beyond many people that I know, this is a great time to show and showcase the fact that you have new ideas or you're adaptable or everything else. Of course, we also have to create some synergy and be ready across all of our marketing materials. So make sure you have a cohesive story across and consistent story across all of your resume, your LinkedIn profile, even though I think it needs to be a much more expanded telling, your messaging, your cover letter, all of it. And it has to work together with what you select on social media so that everything supports what you're trying to accomplish. Even if you're trying to support 3 directions at once, I have to have all the right resume and LinkedIn that supports every type of person that comes to see me. And then I have to share just the right LinkedIn shares so that each person looking for a certain type sees their content. The other content and the other background story about me then acts as a value-added piece. Not only do I have exactly what you're looking for, but I also have this. And that's how you begin to outmaneuver your competitor pretty quickly. In terms of brand management, we're then going to have to open up that Pandora's box. This is an endless share strategy where you begin to share and you share like breathing. If I were in job search right now, I'd be recommending 4, 5, or 6 times per day, which takes all of 2 minutes. You know why? I wake up in the morning, I grab my first cup of coffee, although this is my second, and I go, oh, copy, paste, share. What did that take? 15 seconds? Time for a second cup of coffee. Oh, copy, paste, share. Time for lunch, copy, paste, share. Well, I'm a coffee hound, afternoon coffee, copy, paste, share. End of the day, copy, paste, share. It is 2 total minutes out of the whole day if you just do the homework. You can't get out of the homework. Nobody likes doing the homework, but you should. Once you get into it, it's actually kind of fun. So I'm going to sit and think about how I'm going to use these different platforms, and I have to begin to put the right content together. Also means you have to know yourself, because you have to be have some honesty and integrity and be yourself, which doesn't mean I have to be confessional. Now, I grew up Catholic. I know all about confession. This is not a confessional moment. This is a presentation moment. I still have to be myself. This is still me, even though I'm shy and introverted. Am I not being genuine because this is what you see? No, this is who I am too. We are all multifaceted creatures. You're going to have to give yourself permission to step out of the small sections of boxes that we've designed for our brain and free ourselves, still allowing yourself to be you. Really, really important as far as a brand management. Now, to begin all of this, you need a personal inventory. Now, if you've already reinvented the resume or reinvented the LinkedIn profile, you've likely already done it. But you're going to have to go back, maybe do a 90-minute deep dive interview to uncover every single piece of your background. All those pieces that you flicked away or let slip away so long ago because you thought, oh, that's nothing, it's so insignificant. Oh, get rid of that. And because of your emotional connection to those things and how you assign value, you can't see how those elements should come into the master story, your storytelling piece that would make people go, oh, well, no wonder because we tend to hide some of those wonderful things. So let's go back and rediscover every single piece of our background and decide which parts help with the adaptability side of the storytelling or the new idea side of the storytelling. And those are assets that belong to you. Just go back and get them. Also, maybe things either in your work life or outside of your work life, which could involve a number of things you see on screen here, meetups and things in the community, all sorts of things that are part of your overall story. Everything I'm going to have to filter through that one singular question. Why is it going to be the best business decision they're going to make today if they choose to hire me? If it rises to that level, it's content I would like to use, I'd like to think about, and I need to make sure it's really across all of my background. So watch the full-length LinkedIn lecture, the full-length resume renovation lecture, the interview intervention lecture coming up on Tuesday. Make sure you're ready to talk about these aspects, which really are all about performance and how you effectively delivered something. It's never really about you. It's about you through the lens of how you help the company. That's the date. And make sure it goes across every piece of your communications. Now, LinkedIn, because we're primarily going to talk about our social media marketing campaign on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the de facto social networking website for our work life, really just like Facebook, but this one's for career. Okay. So it's just few other things beyond the basic. It's communications, research, marketing, advertising platform. What business person's going to think of LinkedIn this way? But you need to think of LinkedIn this way. You have that career brand to manage forevermore. I hope this part's not a surprise. You're not going to have one more job. You're going to have one more job. And after that, you're going to have one more job. And after that, you're going to have one more job. That is the world we live in today. So the sooner you begin to manage your career branding, the easier every one of these transitions gets. Now, here's my numbers from this morning. 11,892 direct connections. 3 levels out, that is better than 21 million people. 21 million people that I can influence. And boy, my social media shares don't just stop with the 21 million. Let's be clear here. When I share something, it is not going to land on 21 million desktops. But based on what the AI thinks, because the AI only is concerned with making money, and money for website means clicks, means reaction. So if your content is good, they're going to spread it to a lot of people. If your content is dull, it's not going very far. So we're going to have to think about and watch our content, and maybe even test some of our content. Nobody did anything. Nobody reacted. Let's look at it. Yeah, it's kind of dull. We're going to have to work on that piece of it. So whether we're using LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, you're going to have to think about everything here. Creative, I don't know how you're not using Instagram as part of the strategy, but individually, we're all going to have to figure out which ones make sense for us. In terms of LinkedIn, we need to be a perception management person on this side too. That means you have to get to 501 connections. I teach exactly how to do it in 4 days. You could be at 0 right now in connections. In 4 days from now, you can be at 501, labeled 500 plus forevermore. Mover, shaker, finger on the pulse. Check the LinkedIn lecture. Follow the instructions. 4 days from now, you'll be at 500 plus. You have to manage every element of knowledge to you, every element that elevates your value. Pay attention down your LinkedIn profile and make sure you've added a number of visual elements that also, communicate what you're all about. By the way, working or not working, you need to be living and breathing your profession. If you are unemployed, looking for a new job, this white window you see right here, this is from LinkedIn. If this does not exist on your profile, it's because you're not doing anything and haven't done anything for a very long time. This is a 90-day view of what you have shared or reacted to or written or posted. If your box is empty, they're probably not even sure if you're still alive. I had a client last year go, gosh, I think I need a social media or digital tune-up. I'm not getting any reaction. And this is a person that has a very, very nice background. I've worked with them for about 10 years. And I'm like, well, I know I built your LinkedIn profile. I know it's a really good one because I know you have an amazing background. Let me go take a fresh look with new eyes. And I went right to this box and it was empty. I'm like, you were riding the gravy train for so long in the nice career run, you forgot to continue to do social media marketing to the point where you just stopped doing it. and now they don't even know whether you're still alive or still looking for a job, or maybe it's a profile that someone forgot to memorialize. Or you could have a box like this one on mine, where it's that chance for them to look over your shoulder. What is John reading, doing, sharing, attending? This is how you begin to take control just from the look on LinkedIn. Every other piece you put on there is something that could open doors for you. In terms of what you do say, your words are very precious. You have to be very, very careful. You have to make sure they're all valuable and succinct. Perception is reality, and you change reality simply by changing perception with a few words. Now, if you need some encouragement on this, before I take you through this whole list coming up here, I have a close friend who's also a client of mine. Years ago, we used to work together. They dotted line reported to me. And then I went into recruiting and I placed them into GTE Internetworking, which became Genuity. And then as a career coach, I've helped them move to level 3 communications, Nokia Siemens Networks, Liberty Media, Cisco Systems, and well, about to start even a new job very, very soon, which I can't mention because I haven't started it yet. Well, you look at all that background. If we backed up a few years to Nokia Siemens Network, that person was desperately trying to get to director level at that point. I got to get to director level. I got to get to director level. If I don't get there, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm like, there's some timer. Yeah, they thought their timer's running out. Oh, I got to get there. It's going to end for me soon. I'm like, really? We're about the same age. Well, we're within a handful of the same years. I'm like, I don't think it's about over for me. That's a mental mindset. If we've already checked out, well, it probably is over for us. If you have a passion for what you do, really, there's no age or time limit. My oldest client so far, I think maybe it was 3 years ago now, 86 years old. Also my client 2 years before that, 84, back to work both times. It's really not about the number. By the way, they work in luxury. There are certain fields where there is no time limit. There may be a time in your career that if we need to keep working, you have to migrate to one of those fields where there really is no time limit. Another field where there is no time limit, recruiting. Gosh, when I was back in recruiting, one of our top performers was out in the Denver office, 75 years old at that point, 75 years old, and really kicking the numbers right to the moon. I'm like, wow, this guy's amazing. Yep, all in conversation, simply over the phone. There's no age factor in recruiting. So that's another direction that you may want to think about eventually. Take whatever background you have, move into recruiting, and you can engage all those people that were just like you very comfortably. So social media share plan. This part is much easier than you think. The concept is really simple. 2 hours of homework. I'm going to come up with 25 or 30 items to share. Excuse me the crassness of my language here. You cannot piss away all of your time every single day looking for the new share. Well, I got to find this morning's share, spending an hour on finding some share. The time you have available in your job search is extremely precious. You can't waste that away. Do 2 hours of homework. We're going to pull 25 to 30 content items. That's a mix of articles, books, events, anything that's really special, like 2 or 3 that are close to your heart that you pull. Oh, I love these 3. Okay, if they're so special and they need to hit at a certain time, you could use the editorial calendar and simply remind yourself on these certain days to share those items. Everything else goes into a list, basic text document, Word document, whatever you'd like. And we're going to be able to then, after the homework, simply go copy, paste, share 4 to 6 times a day in 2 total minutes, like breathing, without thought. I get to the bottom of the list. I go right back to the top of the list, begin to share, and I share it like a little gerbil going around that wheel over and over and over. I can use that same list for 6 to 8 weeks. I just keep using the whole thing, 6 to 8 weeks, 25 to 30 shares. I share a lot of the same stuff. I dare you to go dig through my background on LinkedIn to try to see what is there. I don't think they're going to see a repeat statistically. That's our concern. Not going to see a repeat. Plus, how many times did you have to see that darn McDonald's commercial or that Coca-Cola commercial before you're walking down the street going, I feel like a Coca-Cola and a Big Mac for some reason. It's not good for you, not good for you, don't do it. But that's how advertising works. That's how your social media shares work. So think back to all of these things that have to migrate and change, all these things up on screen. Well, I grabbed a little tissue here. Sorry about that. So yeah, you're going to have to absorb some of this and even begin to speak differently about yourself, but you're going to have to think about all these aspects that could become part of your share strategy, part of the content strategy. So back to the share plan. Let's develop this a little bit. We have to think like a storyteller. Now, storyteller gets a bad rap because we think that's someone that's not telling the truth. No. I mean, you need to tell the truth. It needs to literally be the truth. However, I can tell you something very, very truthful in a very dull, just blood-sucking way that sucks all the energy out of the room. Or I could tell you the same story that's still true in a very engaging way that makes the visual pop right into the brain because I put you in my shoes. When I got the call from the CEO and I picked up the phone and I heard the voice, put them back in that moment. A little bit of storytelling that's all still true. It's our job to set the stage, set the atmosphere, get them to feel for us. And also then they're going to imagine how they can help us. Yeah, I have to look back with very rose-colored glasses. This is like I'm talking to a dear old friend I haven't seen in 5 years, even though everybody I will reach out to, everybody I might share with, probably really doesn't know me. But that's the right way to share it. That's the right attitude. This is about nuance. It's also about influence. Every one of these things, every one of these shares is a gentle figurative nudge. A little tiny bit of a tap on the shoulder. I'm going to pull these center stage. Maybe I'll go a little bit tiny so these get more visual. You can see them. So as you look at some of these are some of my shares just to give you a little bit of inspiration. So top left, here I am up at Rainbow Push Wall Street Project. This was the very first year. I did it 4 or 5 times. Interesting story here. The good and bad in life all happens at the same time. So while this was an extremely exciting week, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did this happen for me? Also the same week, my father was passing away in hospice at 91 years old. And so, on the weekends, I'm flying down to Florida to see my dad and go through that process as well. And my dad was still in an amazing mood right to the very end. He's like, oh my gosh, how exciting. How does these things happen for you? And so I am glad the pictures are fairly small here, because what you probably can't see unless you zoom in really, really close there is I am very, very stressed in that picture because of everything going on that week, of course. And also this particular day, I had about 2.5 hours of sleep with all of the stress going on. But you know what? Opportunity is knocking. I can't reschedule the opportunity. This is my chance. I have to toughen up and just deal with it, because the good and bad in life happens all at the same time. I'll miss your opportunity because life is in the way. Life is part of what we navigate. And so I shared that, and that was quite interesting. Then I shared a few articles which aren't very uplifting if you're looking at those titles, but they're exactly right for what I do. Then top right here, I got a call from a radio show host going, this was during February social media month. They're like, oh, you going to the Google headquarters for the keynote? So yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. When is it? Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, great. February is actually my busiest month of the year. There's no month I have that isn't more busy with clients and talks and everything else than February. It's a scramble to try to find sleep. And yet, of course, I'd love to be there 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Now I got there and radio show host did not show up. Okay. So I'm sitting there another day of about 2.5 hours sleep, and was not speaking, by the way. And I heard these speakers suddenly go, the real world is insufficient. And it's like the Liberty Bell going off in my head. Like, oh, that's what I've been trying to say for a very long time. If you don't exist in the virtual world professionally, you don't exist professionally. No longer okay to have an amazing background on paper or even a little bit on LinkedIn and there's really nothing else anywhere about you. You're going to have to push message that you're attached to raise your brand value. Let's show you a couple other shares here. I got a few more to share that you can look at. Again, these are all angled for what I do. You're going to make it about your industry, your challenges, your roles, whatever is inspiring you or what new direction you might like to go. So on the left here, I'm up at WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio, and been up there 4 or 5 times. That's always a lot of fun. And top right has nothing really to do with what I do for the work. I was volunteering on behalf of the New York Public Library, took a day and went up to speak to the lawmakers in Albany to help really drive home the point of the very, very necessary safety net funding for the library. The library is not an add-on for society. The library is the safety net for society. Again, by the way, the library does not pay me. That's volunteering when I do things for the library. And here again, it's just good works, which is a great character issue and also shows you what I care about. Looking over the shoulder, reading, doing, caring. Of course, got featured in AM New York with everything going on. That's always a little bit fun, happens on occasion. Here I broke the Civil Science Industry Business Library's record for a regularly scheduled lecture. Broke the attendance record, so I'm very competitive, even though I'm shy and introverted. So I love that, and I posted it. A couple more articles that aren't very uplifting because of the topics, but they're exactly right for what I do. A little bit more media coverage, all of that. Then suddenly I get this call. Going, "You're in Essence Magazine. You're in Essence Magazine." I'm like, "Who is this?" I'm getting punked. What? Maybe I should go look. Maybe I'm there. I don't know. And this was 2012. And that was a pretty tough time because all the magazine stores had all started to close. There was like one on every block for a while. And then suddenly they all decided they had to go out of business at the same time. And so it was hard to find a magazine store, and then harder to find this particular magazine because, of course, Barack was on the cover. And then I found it, and my gosh, my book is in the magazine. Now you see this shorter gal here on the left side of the page here. That's the gal that got me into the magazine. She was standing outside the New York Public Library after one of my lectures. And, when I do the live lectures in person, these are live as well over the internet, but when I do them in person, well, when the library closes its doors, I tend to be out on the sidewalk if it's not raining for as long as it takes till I answer all the questions. Whoever has a question, I'm right there. Just come on up. And suddenly she goes, "Oh, I'm blogging about my job search for Essence Magazine." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you should have my book." Doesn't take me very long to connect those dots. I didn't ask anything for it. In this case, I knew that it would find its way somewhere. It's called a leap of faith. We all need to take a few of those things on occasion. And suddenly, boom, my book ends up there. By the way, she's standing there talking to some other career coach, but it's John's book that's on that list. So learn to open doors is the point of that. We tend to go through life far too transactionally. Well, if I try this, what am I going to get? Well, I don't know. But I know what you're going to get if you keep doing the same thing. We have to really step out of the box and try something different. Here a few years ago, I was on Rise TV, Our Take with Christina Brown. It was a really fun show shot in Midtown. It was a very strange little network that was around for a while. It was live shows that were live in South Africa and in the UK. Everything else was online, and their studios were in Midtown Manhattan, which was a very strange, 2 blocks from the library. So it was a very strange thing. But through that whole process, which was fascinating, and of course I got some great videotape, I then became connected to a TV producer who's worked with some pretty impressive people over time. And, all those doors that you potentially open, you just never know where it's going to go. Social media marketing is really the Kardashian side of what we need to do. Now, hopefully we don't take it quite that far too extreme, but it is about getting comfortable with this concept of endless self-promotion. Grew up Catholic, as I said earlier. Oh my gosh, the understanding of guilt, overwhelming. Yes. To do these things is just so against culture and against the nature. If you'd like to be left behind, don't do them. If you'd like to be with the flow into the future, we're going to have to learn to adjust. We're going to have to learn to do a few things that we're very uncomfortable with. Certainly everything you're seeing here that I'm doing, I was never comfortable with in an earlier iteration of John. But then I saw my goals, I saw what I desired, and I knew what I had to do to get to where I needed to be. And I gave myself permission. So here's a few shares to inspire you. And all of this shapes perception. Begin to think about what you'll share. Here we did a group shot at one of the events, so I shared that. Doing an event at Grace Institute, so I shared that. That's always a fun place to do some events. They do some really good works for the underserved gals in the city that have a skills development program. Really great stuff. Also placing in great employers. Shared some more articles, always important. Shared a picture of my live boot camp. Now, I used to do the boot camp live 2-3 times a year. I'd run through an X number of sessions online. People would all sign up for it. All of that is about to go permanently on live, so you can start and stop anytime you'd like. So think about those things. Here I am up at the WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio Studios doing one of their shows again. 661 views. Okay, not very impressive, right? I mean, those aren't Kardashian numbers, nor do I have the Kardashian bank account. But let's break this down here. 661 views. I don't know how you use your newsfeed, but there's a whole lot of things that I read in my newsfeed that I certainly never click on. Those are 661 clicks. If 661 people clicked on that thing, thousands of people saw it, read it, absorbed it. That's how advertising works. Of course, my coffee, my book made it into the picture. I didn't quite make it into that picture. Still a great storytelling picture and thing to send out. So, big posts, you can put in large form articles. That's another way. Most people never take advantage of that. Imagine if I asked you, how do you think you'd do on your next interview if you could control every single word of the interview in advance? How do you think you'd do? Well, John, I think I'd do pretty well. Okay, well, that's what the advantage is, or the possibility is. If you would write 4 or 5 or 6 articles that somehow surround what you do professionally, very short, because nobody wants to read. That's a page and a half, never longer. Very succinct. These are recruiting documents for people to come get you. If I had said to you, hey, could you talk to my kid? You know, they kind of like to come down the same track you're on. Could you give them some pearls of wisdom, some advice? Yeah, that's the right, wise mentoring tone for those articles. Sharing a little bit of what you do of best practices, kind of what you do from several different angles. Share those things in the long form. Let's show you the long form. In the long form, telling you have big visuals you can put in there, headlines, everything else. These long form articles become part of the LinkedIn blog library, things that are searchable. And when they love your article, your wisdom, they can then reach right back out to you and recruit you. It's a direct link right to your profile every single time. So I really hope we do some of that type of social media marketing. And then when we put that article up, we should hopefully understand that we could share it to the news feed separately. We can share it over into 10 or 15 groups that are the appropriate groups separately. Don't simply do one item. Think about, I've shared it. Now, where else could I share it? On that same note, all those shares that you just saw of mine, I would share them to the news feed. And then right after it posts, I'd grab it again and I'd go, well, which of my groups need to also know this? So it has a higher likelihood of landing on those desktops. Think out of the box. So in terms of structuring what you might like to share that is valuable, I'm a big believer in 4, 5, 6, 7 words of your opinion, followed by the title in quotes, followed by the link. Very short, succinct. That's how advertising works when it's effective. Just finished a great project on, with the title, projects that are sellable, or selected to lead new initiatives in digital content development. All right, fantastic, great. That should get noticed. Or a member of a new divisional cost containment and reduction committee. Okay, you're not going to be very popular for this one, but it's a great needed skill. And if that is your skill, there are companies looking to hire you. Reading Social Media Marketing, An Hour a Day by Dave Evans. What a great book. By the way, if you'd like 1-hour lessons that are really structured in a clear way, I rarely ever would recommend someone else's book. This is a book I would recommend. It's a great book. I've used it myself. Developing a new project on, something that shows your depth and skill, something that highlights all that, or attending a lecture series on workforce development, or attending a lecture series on social media marketing. I can leave out that it's for job search. Understanding social media marketing is valuable for every role, no matter what. So get your credit, even if it's a job search lecture. Every one of these things are that figurative nudge, that gentle prodding for persuasion, figurative attention gathering. Small changes change perception. Sharing accolades, sharing praise, sharing kudos. Well, that can shine the light on you too if you understand how to do it in the very, very nice way. Because the sun can reflect a little light. If it hits the moon, it can reflect that back to me. I just have to think about that dynamic. Congratulations, Dave. I see you're reading An Hour a Day or Social Media Marketing, An Hour a Day by Dave Evans. What a great book. Really got me up to speed. Enjoy it. Really got me up to speed. Enjoy it. Yeah. A little bit of moonlight coming back, a little bit of a positive thing coming back on this side. Really, the easiest way to be seen as a leader, this is another aspect that you have to think about in elevating your brand and really causing a career evolution for yourself. What are you waiting for? Simply be a leader. You don't need someone to assign you something, some responsibility. I think my coffee and my passion is getting me. Let me get a little bit of water here to dilute my coffee down in my stomach, which feels better. Is there something that has to be solved? Is there something unresolved? Is there something not developed? Is there something that has to be rethought? What are you waiting for? Now, clearly I work for myself at this point, but across my entire career, I've certainly worked for many other individuals. Every time I've held a job at someone else's organization, I simply act like I own the company. And when I say that in front of a live audience, in-person audience, boy, there's some laughter. I don't mean based on what you see here. Let's see if we can delete a little bit more of that acid. Probably too fast on the coffee drinking. What I simply mean is you got to elevate your brand. They have to see you as the solution. I don't wait for someone to assign something to me. And you know that job description, that 8.5 by 11 sheet of this is what your job is? You know what that is to me? The starting ideas for my job. You know what they hired me for? My brain and my expertise. That's a short little guide as to how I might do the job. I have no limits. I do whatever's necessary. I don't care where the lines are. And you know what that leads to? Gosh, at one point in my career working for other people, I was being promoted every 4 to 5 months. And I'm like, could you slow down? I'm scrambling to catch up here. My heart is beginning to break out of my chest with stress. Was I fooling these people? No. They were just so amazed at how many things I could stack on my plate and how much I could deliver. What if we put this on John's plate? What if we put that on John's plate? You're in charge. They hired you. So let's see how you can do that job the very, very best way. Make sure that you understand every single piece of communication you put out there is part of your social media piece. So status updates, group things, every piece of communication is very, very important. Now, signature block. Signature block is probably the most overlooked piece of social media marketing. This is when you open a new email to send someone an email. Is it blank? You don't have a signature block. It should have a preset finish to every single message that's going out. Now, here's my ridiculously long email signature. First time I ever wrote this, I was just horrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, what would my mother think? Wow, John, impressive. Looks like you made it. You know what? Everything here is true. Everything here is mine. I earned it. You have to give yourself permission to use it, no matter how culturally difficult it may be for you. But at a bare minimum, you can have a much simpler one. Your name, your brand, your phone number, your email, and something that's as simple as connect with me on LinkedIn with your LinkedIn address line, your sales brochure, suddenly going with every personal, every business email you ever send again for the rest of your life. Wherever you are in this process, understand that it's your job to be excited about you and to help push your message out there. Be persuasive, be knowledgeable, be the person that they're looking for. Take that first step, whatever it might be for you, or the next step, and learn how to make this a repeatable process. Thank you guys for joining in today. By the way, if you need help elevating your career brand, elevating your resume, elevating that story across your LinkedIn profile, or navigating those interview discussions, you can find me right over on selfrecruiter.com. All my services packages are right under the services little download menu. And if you'd like to speak before selecting the right package, just send me a quick email. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today, and we will see you again very soon. Take care.